Alan Ritchson's Jack Reacher cracked two hilarious jokes in the same episode, and now I'm shook. I cannot help but feel surprised by how Alan Ritchson's Jack Reacher cracks two hilarious jokes in Reacher Season 3's Episode 7. When it comes to comedy, Prime Video's Reacher usually derives it from the titular character's over-the-top one-liners or his hilarious dynamic with his allies. For instance, much of Reacher Season 1's comedy came from the Alan Ritchson character's disagreements and conflicts with Finley. Some of the funniest moments in Reacher Season 2 also featured the banter between Jack Reacher and his former military police ally, David O'Donnell. More often than not, Jack Reacher's nearly superhuman feats of strength are also quite hilarious. It was hard not to laugh when he kicked Russo's car in Season 2 and triggered the airbag. Even in Season 3, it was funny how Reacher outsmarted Polly and made him punch himself. However, Alan Ritchson's Jack Reacher rarely seems to crack jokes intentionally. Reacher Season 3's Episode 7 finally changes this by giving viewers a glimpse of another side of his personality, where he cracks not one, but two great jokes. Reacher cracks not one, but two great jokes in Season 3, Episode 7. Reacher's first joke in Season 3's Episode 7 comes when he and Duffy visit Teresa's grandmother. While they share a meal with her and talk to her about Teresa, the grandmother notices how Reacher and Duffy have some undeniable chemistry. Duffy tries to brush it off by claiming they only share a professional relationship. However, Jack Reacher hilariously jokes that Duffy only wants him for his body. His funny one-liner makes Duffy choke on her food while the grandmother laughs away, proving that Reacher can be quite funny when he willingly lets his guard down. In an early moment from Reacher Season 3's Episode 7, Duffy feels excited about busting Prado and using him to arrange a meeting with Beck. She says that she loves seeing how every time she busts a cunt, they make the same face her ex made when she showed him his messages with her cousin Rhonda. She even gets to see Prado's cousin Rhonda face when they betray him and call law enforcers to search his art gallery. Much later in the episode, Reacher jokes about wanting his own cousin Rhonda moment, implying that he wants to bust Quinn and catch him red-handed. Alan Ritchson's role as Jack Reacher may be a little too serious. The character rarely says anything at all, let alone crack jokes. Owing to this, it may be easy to forget that Ritchson has played many comical roles in the past. One might assume that comedy is not his forte after seeing Reacher, but the actor has proven his comedic chops in many shows and movies. For instance, Ritchson perfectly timed his funny one-liners and delivered them with impeccable wit in his role as Anders Lassen in Guy Ritchie's The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. Long before he became a household name with his mainstream roles in movies and Prime Video's Reacher, Ritchson also played the hilarious Thad Castle in Blue Mountain State. Alan Ritchson also briefly appeared in one of Brooklyn Nine-Nine's episodes and has played many other non-serious roles in the past. His Reacher jokes in Season 3's Episode 7 might seem surprising, but comedy is not something he is new to. Interestingly, Ritchson has confirmed Blue Mountain State Season 4's renewal, which will potentially mark his return as Thad Castle. That's the unspoken rule, etched into the gravelly silence of Lee Child's novels and reinforced by decades of stoic heroes with granite jaws and permanent frowns. Jack Reacher, the wandering former MP with a brain like Sherlock Holmes and fists like Thor's hammer, walks through life like a freight train in denim. He breaks bones, solves murders, rights wrongs, and disappears before anyone can thank him. And most of the time, he does it all with the emotional range of a brick wall. But in Season 2, Episode 6 of Amazon Prime Video's Reacher, something seismic happened. Something I wasn't ready for. Something that shook my understanding of the character to its very core. Reacher cracked not one, but two hilarious jokes in the same episode. And reader, I'm still recovering. Let's rewind. Up to this point in the series, Alan Ritchson's Reacher had remained pretty faithful to his literary counterpart. Towering at 6'3" of pure muscle and steel-eyed silence, Ritchson brought the character to life with intimidating physicality, military precision, and a refreshing lack of small talk. He was the human equivalent of a wrecking ball, deliberate, unstoppable, and not exactly brimming with banter. So when Episode 6 dropped, I was bracing myself for the usual Reacher cocktail, mystery, mayhem, and maybe a coffee refill at some roadside diner. What I didn't expect was comedy gold. It started subtle. Reacher and Neagley played flawlessly by Maria Sten, aka the only person allowed to sass Reacher and live to tell the tale, were holed up in a dusty safe house, reviewing a suspect's records. Neagley made a dry comment about Reacher's people skills being somewhere between a brick and a cactus, to which Reacher, deadpan as ever, replied, "I once talked a guy into surrendering just by explaining what I'd do to his kneecaps. That counts as people skills." I paused, rewound, laughed, then laughed harder, realizing he was being serious and hilarious. That was joke, #1. Dry. Understated. The kind of humor that creeps up on you like a stealth attack, completely in character, yet unexpectedly delightful. Then, not 10 minutes later, it happened again. This time, Reacher was interrogating a thug in a grimy garage. The thug, desperate and flustered, muttered something about calling his lawyer. Reacher looked him dead in the eye and said, "You can call your lawyer. I'll be done before he answers." Mic, drop. It wasn't just the line. It was the timing, the delivery, the sheer audacity of a man cracking a joke while simultaneously threatening to rearrange someone's internal organs. It wasn't slapstick. It wasn't out of place. It was Reacher humor, dry as the Mojave, sharper than his elbow strikes, and perfectly timed. And somehow, Alan Ritchson made it all work. Which begs the question, since when is Jack Reacher funny? To be fair, book readers know that Reacher does have a sense of humor, albeit a dark, tactical one. His inner monologue in the novels is sprinkled with sarcasm, quiet quips, and the occasional ironic observation about the absurdity of modern life and how many ways there are to kill a man with a toothbrush. But that humor rarely made it into other adaptations. In the Tom Cruise films, Reacher was stoic to the point of emotional suppression. There was zero room for levity between the bones snapping and brooding. What Ritchson's Reacher proves is that humor doesn't have to undermine toughness. In fact, it enhances it. Those two jokes weren't just throwaway lines. They were subtle character moments that added depth to the man behind the muscle. They showed us that Reacher is more than a human battering ram. He's observant, sharp, capable of delivering dry wit with the same precision as a headbutt. And honestly, we needed that. Because in a television landscape overflowing with grimdark antiheroes and monologue-prone vigilantes, Reacher stands out precisely because of how little he says. So when he does speak, and especially when he cracks wise, it hits harder. It's like finding out your Roomba writes poetry or your cat knows calculus. It's shocking, oddly endearing, and deeply entertaining. The best part? Ritchson doesn't overplay it. He doesn't wink at the camera or break character. His delivery is as serious as a court-martial, which makes it all the funnier. It's the kind of humor that sneaks in under your radar and detonates 10 seconds later, just like a well-planted C4. Naturally, Reacher goes back to smashing skulls and solving puzzles immediately after, as if nothing happened. But for those of us paying attention, it was a revelation. Reacher can be funny. Not sitcom funny. Not Marvel snark funny. But Reacher funny. Minimalist. Tactical. Deadpan. And I, for one, am obsessed. So here we are, 2 jokes later, and the fandom is collectively shook. Memes are circulating. GIFs are being forged in the